my arm warriors, thank you for tuning in to my new YouTube channel. So hopefully you will enjoy the content that I'm going to create. If you do, like, subscribe, hit post notification bell button on, and then comment underneath the video. All that would be very much appreciated. So today's session is going to be starting off with deadlifts, and then we've got some pull movements, and we're also throwing in some miscellaneous work as well, so just to top up the volume from a few of the other body parts throughout the course of the week. So that being quads and hamstrings, so it'll just be a little bit of isolation work at the end. So we'll have deadlifts, 2 to 3 sort of upper back pull movements, and then we'll be breaking those down and hopefully giving you some pointers as to how to use internal or external cues in order to optimize activation within that movement. So no more rambling on, let's get moving. So obviously as you're going through prep, your waist and stomach should be dropping in terms of measurements. So these SBD belts are fantastic because you're able to just sort of adjust them rather than having to get the screwdriver out that you would have to with some other belts. These here are fantastic, but right now, like some of the times I feel like I'm in between the holes, so it's not exactly right. So that's why it's nice to maybe sort of double up in your layers just so we can brace in. Also, because you're getting leaner, particularly with the hip bone being a little bit more exposed, if you're pulling that belt too tight, it's going to be very uncomfortable. So we just want to try and create as much comfort before we get uncomfortable with the movement itself. So a common topic of debate is, should you belt up as you go up through your warm-up sets? Well, I think that you should. So some people will maybe leave that until they get into their top working sets. But I often think about your warm-ups, even from 60 kg up through to the top, as being practice sets. So feeling how the belt feels, make sure that the setting is right, make sure that you're able to brace efficiently and effectively into the belt, I think is really, really important to establish before you go into those top sets. Okay, that feels pretty good for me. So I just practice a little brace in, nice deep breath. I want to expand out into the belt. Yeah, it feels good. So again, just set up, feet just slightly outside hip width. I want to sort of hip hinge, just try and get that position. And the knees should be ahead of the bar at the bottom position here. So that's also going to be my cue to find the optimal position for me to pull in. So once I'm here, I'm actually imagining that I'm trying to shove my knees and shins forward. And that's going to allow me to find a really nice spot to pull from. I'm going to do that simultaneously with taking that breath in and brace. So I actually learned the hard way. I generally live my life in combat trousers, pretty much sleep in them. But I was deadlifting one week and I pulled up and I was like on rep 2 or 3 and my thumbs got caught in the pockets in the negative. Literally ripped the pockets off. If the pockets hadn't ripped, I probably would have snapped the old thumbs here. So that's why basketball shorts for deadlifts, and then I'll be back in the old combats, the old trusty combats. So yeah, we're just going to work up here a little bit, again, maybe about 2 or 3 reps just to get a feeling for it. I'm going to actually use the wrist straps as well. So should I say lifting straps? So this should be moving fairly comfortably. First working set. Again, these should move hopefully fairly well. The intention is that these are sub-maximal. Let's see how it pans out anyway. Set 2.
You can still go, even when you feel slow, you can still go. Even when there's no hope, you can still go. I never answer to no, man, I still go. Go, 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 yo, go, go, go. Hustle hard, hustle every single day. I'll be making moves till I'm buried in my grave. To the system, I don't wanna be a slave. I've been doing shit my way, or the highway. And in the driveway is a nice range, cause I grind through the climb, I invite pain. You'll never hear me, bitch, nah, I don't complain. Just gotta flip the switch and you can go and obtain anything you want, anything you need. Your mind's got the key ingredient, it's belief. They'll deceive with the negativity, but I just slide right by that energy. Even when you feel low, you can still go. Even when you feel slow, you can still go. Even when there's no hope, you can still.
Alright, so we're going to do the old T&Gs, looked down upon by powerlifters, etc. I just love the feeling of it. Just a little bit more dynamic, get the heart rate up a little bit more. So again, I'm just going to move these to see how they feel. In my head, like 10 should be fairly easy. And I'll decide at that point whether to keep going or wrap it up. Okay, now we're going to go into exercise 2. So first sort of proper pull movement. We're going to do a supine grip pull down. So what we're going to try and target here is the lats. The lats is also called the lady between two majors, which maybe a lot of people don't know. The two majors being teres major and pec major. So the insertions just nestles in between there. So I don't know if that's too PC in this day and age. Somebody would probably get offended by that. But anyway, so what we're looking to do is try to isolate the lat as much as possible. Now with the supine grip, the bicep's still going to be highly active, but there's a trade-off with that because you're still going to be able to handle more loads. So I'd say, like EMG analysis, your lats are probably still fairly comparative. So what we're going to try and establish is just around shoulder width grip. I'm going to be gripping a little bit harder with the little finger. So a good way to sort of cue that is squeeze with the little finger and relax the index just very, very slightly. And what that's going to allow us to do is track the elbow and humerus bone a little bit better just by creating that pressure here. And then my cue is actually just going to be focusing on closing off the space underneath the arm and the rib cage. So I'm looking simply to drive the elbow down, down, down. So I think about like that action has to be consistent the whole way through. Down, 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 rather than just down, accelerate, and then the velocity takes you into this space. We need to have this narrative down, 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 and contract. So the rep strategy here is going to be 5 for the top set, heavy. We'll be doing a back off at 10 reps and then another back off at 15. So just a brief biomechanical description. So the lats has numerous origins. So iliac crest, spine, T7 to T12, inferior 3 to 4 ribs, the base of the scapula as well, and then they'll all cross over the shoulder joint, as we know. So the main function of the lat is going to be shoulder and arm extension, so this movement here, so that ties in quite well. We want to control the eccentric phase because we want to try to maintain as much mechanical tension as possible. So another little cue that I would use would be, imagine that you put a beach ball between your elbows and we're trying to maintain this pressure. Now what you'll notice, if you actually just simulate that without a resistance, just squeeze in and then lift your arms up as high as you can, you'll find that there's actually a limiting, like it's almost like a restriction. I can't physically go any higher than that. The only way that I could reach higher is to make the lats go passive, and then the arms will actually immediately rotate, and as soon as that happens, the lats have actually disengaged. So I'm not going to ramble on, I'm going to get the first set done, 5-6 reps to see how this feels. And I want to be accelerating a little bit through the concentric, holding the peak contraction, and then just controlling the eccentric without the shoulders collapsing. I don't want any elevation of the scapula or the glenohumeral joint. So I'm going to lock the little fingers in first, relax the index, and then get myself anchored in, hopefully for a good set. Now this is heavier than my body weight at the minute, which isn't hard. Set, I've actually sort of minimized recovery, so I'm just really still having a little bit of fatigue in the lats there, so the connection's very, very strong at this point. So I'm going to be aiming for 15 reps. Obviously this is the lightest set, and then we'll move on into the next exercise. Okay, so we're going to go into a bench supported dumbbell row. Now we're trying to minimize lat recruitment, so the best way to think about that is try to create space between the inner arm and the rib cage. For me, my priority is going to be the teres major. Whenever that muscle is developed, it just looks so clean in that sort of back double bicep pose. It just sort of fills that space. So I want to develop it, and we'll also get a little bit more into rhomboid's trap area as well, because we're going to be trying to focus on scapular retraction. But what I'm looking to do is create like a double peak contraction at the top. So I want to drive through, and once I've got into that position, pause, then create a secondary by maximizing scapular retraction before I control the eccentric The key point on the negative is ensure the shoulder doesn't collapse. This is a common thing I see with people, whether it's a dumbbell row, barbell row, machine row. They do row variations. As soon as they come up in the concentric, the first thing to relent is the shoulder. The glenohumeral joint starts to drift forward. As soon as you do that, you're losing tension in the muscle you're trying to target. This could be the first working set. Just the same rep strategy as we use with the reverse grip pull downs. I'm going to do 5, then a little bit lighter for 10, a little bit lighter for 15. I'll probably incorporate the double peak contraction once I get into the sort of maybe the 2 lighter sets. It might be very difficult to achieve that in this one. So. I could have went heavier there, but I think for a starting weight, that's pretty good for week 1. There's plenty of room. That's maybe like an RP 5 or 6, which is kind of where I want to be in that. Focus more on execution. Once you're trying to establish a new mesocycle, lock down the parameters that you're going to try to adhere to. So make sure that the tempo that you've got, the active range that you've got, is something that you're happy to build that program on. So week 1 is all about the foundations, like practice your movements, lock them down, make adjustments if necessary. And then from there on, you start to implement whether it's progressive overload or other methods of progression. So, yeah, good set to start off with. All right, sorry, I have to slap myself off here. It wouldn't be a prep bodybuilding series if I didn't get the sort of guns out, whatever there's left. So, yeah, this is going to be the back off set 2, target reps in around 10. I'm definitely going to be trying to achieve those double peak contractions at the top of each rep here, and just still maintain some control through that eccentric.
I love the chase and the hunt, and I set the pace when I'm running. I always take what I want and I always give it 100. Don't need a bank, no I'm funded. Play the game like it's nothing. I'm always thankful for something. Don't take for granted, stay humble. Now wake up! It's time to look at the enemy. Look in the mirror if he is no friend to me. It's not working out, maybe it's the chemistry. It's time to break up so I can make a better me. Better believe in your mind, cause it's everything. You can mold, shape, find almost anything. All it takes is some time and some clarity to find your identity. It's mind over everything. I'm immortal. When I feel like this, I'm immortal. When I feel like this, I'm immortal. When I feel like this.
Okay, so first working set is going to be 5 reps. Again, I'm anchored everything in. I want to minimize any secondary movement here. So create pressure. So force equals mass, like the biting point of your car. And then from there, I'm just going to accelerate, making sure that the knee moves first. In and hold. And then control. Knee first. Control. And again, there was more in the tank, but I'll leave it there for week 1. So I'm training hamstrings here. I forgot myself in that last set, so I don't want to hurt myself anymore. Get the old shirt back on, cover up my goodies. So here, I'm going to drop back in again, nice and tight. Weight's dropped off. The cues are exactly the same. So as I felt in that last set, the bicep femoris was definitely dominant. Now you can't isolate those, they'll all work in synergy, but we can definitely favor which of those muscles is going to be more active during that knee flexion. So I'm just going to straighten the feet up a little bit. Another sort of tool that I would use on occasions would be like a foam roller, and I would put it between the hooks of my feet and hold. And what that's going to do is going to inhibit any external rotation as you go through that set. So I always feel with that process that I would be hitting harder into the semi-tendinosus, semi-membranosus. So there's another little tip that we might use in another video. So for this one, I want to create force equals mass. So that, like the biting point of your car, whenever you put the accelerator down and that's the amount of force is equal in the mass of the vehicle and it's trying to move, that's the biting point. For us to take off that vehicle, all we're looking to do is slightly increase force production, and then the car will obviously take off. I like to try and find that with anything. Once I'm trying to brace against that resistance, I want to equal the resistance first and then move it, not kind of go from 0 to hero and just go blank to moving it, because whenever you do that, so many other opportunities open up for other muscle groups to recruit. So here we're going to be able to isolate a little bit more. Force equals mass, and then just increase force. And this is going to be a tight set, so we're going to aim for 10 reps on this. If you do lose count, it doesn't really matter, particularly if you have an RPE in mind. Just use that as your assessment. You'll know that your ballpark, you'll be within 1 or 2 reps, so it's not the end of the world. Obviously, in terms of if you're logging down what you do on a journal or a workout logbook, we do want to input accurate data. So if you're unsure, you can make reference to that in your program. It's not the end of the world. Finish the set, compose yourself, and then get the next set done. Okay, this is the higher rep set. We're probably just going to speed this up. It's just so you know that it happened, because if it wasn't recorded, didn't count. So we'll probably times this by 2 or 3. Alright, arm warriors, so there you have it. First workout complete. Now, just to summarise on that, that is my back session number 2 of the week. So we are missing a lot of the nuts and bolts, the likes of our BORs and some of the bigger movements like heavy, like weighted chins and stuff like that. So today was just like a little bit more, we'll consider it maybe accessory work. I'm just trying to make sure that I'm paying attention more into the sort of peak contraction of a lot of those movements. And I find that it's just a fantastic way just to develop a better overall pump within the areas I'm trying to target. Obviously we led with the deadlifts because I try and separate those as far away from my leg workout. So this being Friday and legs being trained on a Monday gives me enough time to recover between those two. And that was particularly important whenever I had barbell back squat in my leg program, which was just removed this week, because whenever I found I was heavy squatting and then heavy deadlifting in the same week, just the accumulation of fatigue was extremely high. Bits and pieces that I feel like were missed out in that first session, and particularly areas of the back that I wanted to develop. As I discussed, the teres major I think was an important muscle for me to develop, as well as that mid-back rhomboids trap area, just to try and thicken that out, because without those areas of muscle, that back double bicep just looks poor and weak. But that was the feedback that I actually got initially from the BNBF back in 2016, that I looked pretty good from the front and but looked atrocious from the back. Not in those exact words, but I'm paraphrasing here. So I've made some improvements to my back since then, based on taking the feedback or the critique and running with it, and making sure that I'm designing better programs for myself, and then just make sure that I'm hitting the level of intensity required to develop those weaker areas. Quite often with weaker areas, it's not that people aren't doing the volume, they're just not doing it accurately enough. And as a result, the muscle which is more dominant within that movement, maybe it's the lats or something else, is more active. So the secondary muscle groups tends to be like the runt of the litters in terms of development. So we got to shift how we think about those movements and make sure that we're prioritizing the areas that are mechanically weak, but also in appearance. So in terms of making sure that the muscle is getting as much development as possible. So I'm not going to ramble on. This is video number 1. Hopefully it gets edited as quickly as possible. and then I can get it uploaded for you guys to watch and, you know, give me a little bit of feedback on it. So please make sure that if you do enjoy the content, that you like, subscribe, turn post notifications on, and comment as well, because it's all good for the algorithm. And if I get a good enough sort of feedback, then I'll continue making the videos, and that's pretty much the rule. So thank you. Have a great day from me, from the compound room. I'll see you guys soon.